On August 30th, two foreign tourists visited the ancient city of Pingyao in Shanxi. One of them wore a t-shirt displaying the Japanese military flag, which caught the attention of local Chinese patriots. They confronted him, saying, "You can wear any t-shirt, but not this one." The tourist appeared confused, admitting that he knew it was a Japanese t-shirt, but didn't care, and then walked away. The incident quickly gained attention on X. Some users commented, "It's not illegal, so why does it matter what he wears?" Others remarked, "Poor young man, his mind has been completely brainwashed." After the video went viral in China, many nationalists were outraged. Some threatened to report the foreign tourist, while others suggested revoking his visa-free entry and permanently banning him from entering China. As COVID-19 becomes a thing of the past, the Chinese government has launched the Charm Offensive aimed at the international community. They've introduced various incentives, primarily targeting Western countries, to boost international tourism. However, it seems foreigners are still hesitant to visit China. So, what's behind this reluctance? Since December last year, Chinese authorities have implemented visa-free policies for several European countries, including Germany, France, Italy, and the Netherlands. As of July 1st this year, these policies were extended to New Zealand and Australia. For U.S. tourists, the visa application process has also been simplified. The Deputy Director of China's National Immigration Administration announced at a press conference on August 19th that over 110 policies and measures have been introduced to encourage more foreigners to visit China. These include optimizing visa-free entry, transit visa exemptions, and port visa policies. The popular 144-hour visa-free transit policy now applies to 37 ports and 54 countries. Despite these efforts, the number of foreign tourists visiting China remains significantly lower than before. According to the latest data from the National Immigration Administration, China received 17.3 million foreign tourists from January to July this year. The full year projection for 2024 is expected to be less than 30 million. In contrast, over 35 million foreign tourists visited China in 2023, and in 2019, the country welcomed 97.7 million foreign tourists. A report by Skift Research indicates that China has dropped out of the top 10 countries for international inbound tourists in 2023. In contrast, Japan has seen over 3 million international tourists visiting each month since March this year. From January to June, Japan received a record-breaking 17.8 million international tourists. South Korea welcomed 7.7 million foreign tourists in the first half of this year, nearly returning to its 2019 levels. American economist David Jun Huang believes the primary reason for foreign tourists are reluctant to visit China is the increased safety risks. He explained that this is linked to China's tense international relations, as well as the country's national security law and anti-espionage law. Additionally, a series of extreme incidents, such as the stabbing of an American professor in China and other troubling experiences faced by foreigners, have made tourists feel unsafe about traveling to China. China's revised national security law, which took effect on July 1st, allows agencies conducting anti-espionage investigations to access data, electronic devices, and personal property information. Before the law was implemented, the U.S. government issued a travel advisory in June warning Americans to reconsider traveling to China. The advisory cited concerns over arbitrary enforcement, including potential exit bans and wrongful detentions. The U.S. currently maintains a Level 3 travel advisory for China. Canada and Australia have also urged their citizens to exercise extreme caution when traveling to China. Following the introduction of the new anti-espionage law, China has enacted a series of national security-related laws. They've used various media formats, such as comics, videos, and documentaries, to promote these laws and encourage citizens to participate in anti-espionage efforts. Recently, the Chinese government's campaign encouraging citizens to catch spies has intensified, and it appears to be yielding new results. On July 23rd, China's Ministry of State Security published an article on its WeChat account titled, "How I Discovered a Spy Hunter's Account." The article, written from the perspective of a tour guide and taxi driver, recounts how he discovered a spy. A taxi driver by the name of Xiao Li lives in a tourist city surrounded by mountains and water, known for its unique natural scenery. Many tourists visit the city, and Xiao Li regularly shuttles them between various attractions. Recently, after China implemented the 144-hour visa-free transit policy, Xiao Li received several foreign tourists. To communicate with them, he learned to use translation apps on his phone. This time, Xiao Li picked up 3 foreign tourists, accompanied by a young local woman who seemed to act as their assistant and translator. Xiao Li noticed they didn't seem like friends traveling together, but more like colleagues. Once they reached the deep mountains, one of the foreigners pulled out a laptop while another started taking notes. They occasionally glanced out the window, then quickly looked down to record something. Seeing this, Xiao Li became suspicious. What were these foreigners up to? Why were they so interested in this particular mountain? To confirm his suspicions, Xiao Li deliberately took a detour on the way down the mountain. The foreigners immediately noticed and insisted that Xiao Li follow the original route. Convinced they were foreigners with ulterior motives, Xiao Li reported the incident to the national security authorities as soon as they got out of the car. After an investigation by Chinese security agencies, it was confirmed that these foreigners were spies sent by foreign countries. Their mission was to survey China's basic geographical information and assess the local geological conditions. Chinese law enforcement authorities arrested the foreigners. Xiao Li's proactive reporting was commended, and the relevant security agencies rewarded him. They even held a ceremony where Xiao Li received a cash reward and a certificate. The Chinese government's ongoing emphasis on the threat of foreign espionage has introduced new risks for foreign business travelers, scholars, and journalists visiting China. Many in these professions feel as though they are under surveillance as soon as they enter the country. On August 13th, China's Ministry of State Security published another article claiming to have uncovered over 1,000 cases of Chinese espionage, dismantling numerous spy networks in China. The article condemned Taiwan pro-independence forces, but didn't provide details on the timing or specifics of the cases. In response, Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council said the Chinese government's claims of over 1,000 cases of Taiwanese espionage are either exaggerated or an abuse of vague laws. These laws are being used to detain Taiwanese citizens who don't align with CCP political ideology, who advocate for democracy and freedom. The council added that the Chinese government's simultaneous calls for increased exchanges while arresting Taiwanese citizens highlight contradictions in its Taiwan policy and make it the main obstacle to positive cross-strait interactions. Former Taiwanese National Assembly Representative Huang Pengshao commented on the matter, stating that anti-Taiwan independence is a current policy of the Chinese government. In the past, the Chinese government has also claimed to have dismantled numerous Taiwanese spy networks, but they've never provided specific details. It's unclear whether they're counting individuals or including peripheral organizations they encountered. The Chinese government might be counting Taiwanese who have been detained or imprisoned for various other reasons. By announcing these figures, the Chinese government's anti-Taiwan independence and anti-secession rhetoric is intended as a form of intimidation. Huang Pengshao said that China's use of Taiwan independence and espionage issues to intimidate Taiwanese people could have negative effects. It might discourage them from traveling, working, studying, or investing in China. He pointed out that there are various departments in China that often arrest people arbitrarily to gain favor, labeling them as spies or traitors. With no rule of law, only ruled by men, anyone who offends the wrong person could be reported and face serious consequences. This risk also extends to foreigners from the United States, Japan, and other countries. On August 16th, a senior Taiwanese official told BBC Chinese that 15 Taiwanese citizens are currently detained in China on various charges, including violating the anti-secession law, a Chinese domestic law claiming Taiwan is a part of China and suggests that non-peaceful means may be arbitrarily employed by China to achieve unification. On August 2019, Taiwanese businessman Li Mengchu was arrested in Shenzhen after taking photos of the police. Mainland authorities later convinced him of espionage, though he denied the charges. He wasn't released until last year. In April 2023, China confirmed the arrest of a Taiwanese publisher, accusing him of endangering national security. He is still in custody. Ms. Xu, who once lived and worked in mainland China, now fears traveling there for business. After returning to Taiwan, she started volunteering for an NGO that helps refugees from Hong Kong settle in Taiwan. Ms. Xu said, "It's definitely more dangerous now. In 2018, the Chinese government started using surveillance cameras to find pedestrians for jaywalking. The system can recognize your face and send the ticket directly to your home. She expressed deep concerns about the misuse of surveillance, fearing it could target even tourists, not to mention those already on potential suspect lists. In June this year, Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council advised the public to avoid unnecessary travel to China. Professor Li Qing-sung at Fujian Catholic University in Taiwan noted, "I know some American professors who simply refuse to go to China." The Wall Street Journal reported in March, citing data from China's National Immigration Administration, that Beijing issued about 71,000 residence permits to foreigners last year. This marks a 15% drop from pre-pandemic 2019. Meanwhile, the number of short-term visitors to China, including business travelers, decreased by 2/3. The data also show that in Shanghai, a major business hub, the number of new work visas issued to foreigners fell from 70,000 at the peak of the pandemic in 2020 to 50,000 in 2022. According to the American Chamber of Commerce in China's 2024 China Business Climate Survey report, the percentage of foreign talent unwilling to relocate to China reached 33% last year. Although this drop may be partly due to the government's strict pandemic control policies, the willingness of foreigners to live in China remains low. U.S.-China relations and other geopolitical issues are the main factors. Susan, an Italian woman who studied and worked in several Chinese cities and now lives in Shanghai, recently commented on the situation. She said that Jing'an district in Shanghai used to resemble New York, with foreigners everywhere. But now, she added, you can walk for a long time without seeing a single one. Many shops and restaurants have closed, and rents have dropped compared to before. Susan also mentioned that before the pandemic, renting a property in some areas cost at least 15,000 yuan per month, and even then, good locations were hard to find. She now lives in a house that used to be rented by a German who left China during the pandemic and took only his essential belongings, leaving everything else behind. From her recent observations, Susan noted that although the number of foreign tourists in Shanghai has increased, most of them stay in the more peripheral Minhan district rather than the more prosperous areas like Jing'an or the former French concession. Susan also noticed an increasing number of tall, young Russian women on the Shanghai subway recently. It's unclear what they're doing here, she remarked. The reluctance of foreigners to come to China is becoming a bigger issue. Economist David Jun Huang believes that the sharp decline in foreign tourists visiting China is due to safety risks, as well as China's strict zero-COVID policy in recent years and the current economic situation. He explained, China's strict zero-COVID policy during the pandemic caused many related flights, routes, and tourism services to be cut off for over 3 years, and many have not yet recovered. We're also seeing increased downward pressure on China's economy, and investment opportunities in China are rapidly decreasing. This will also reduce business trips, tourism, sightseeing, and even studying abroad. Huang pointed out that while the number of foreign tourists coming to China from Asia, Africa, Latin America, and Russia is increasing, the number coming from Europe and the United States is decreasing significantly. Western tourists tend to spend more on high-end services, contributing an estimated 3% or more to GDP. A decrease in these tourists is undoubtedly a disadvantage for China's economy, reducing its appeal to the international market and its potential for growth in international tourism and image promotion. It's not just Beijing that's becoming isolated. The overall distance between Chinese people and the rest of the world will likely grow. Amid a sluggish economic recovery and tense geopolitical background, airlines worldwide are cutting flights to China, abandoning what once seemed like a sizable market. Some airlines have even announced indefinite suspensions. On August 10th, a British airline announced it would suspend the London-Beijing route in October this year. The news caused quite a stir, especially since 2 airlines had already announced suspensions of routes from China. In July, Virgin Atlantic announced an indefinite suspension of its London-Shanghai flights. This is the airline's only route to China, so its suspension means it's exiting the Chinese market entirely. In May this year, Qantas announced that it would suspend its Sydney-Shanghai flights starting in July. At the same time, some airlines that haven't yet suspended flights to China have switched to using smaller aircraft with fewer seats. For example, Emirates has completely replaced the Airbus A380 with a smaller Boeing 777 on its Beijing and Shanghai routes. So why are these Western countries suspending flights to China? United Airlines explained that due to a sharp decline in demand for travel to China, the company has reallocated its capacity to other regions in Asia Pacific. Some in the airline industry believe that rising costs are also a key reason why foreign airlines are suspending China routes. Foreign airlines need to consider profitability, which naturally leads them to abandon the Chinese market. But it's not just about profitability. The pandemic, political changes, and other factors also play a role. More airlines are expected to leave the Chinese market in the future. Taiwanese financial expert Huang Shikong told media that Western airlines are reducing or canceling routes to China, mainly due to supply and demand issues. He explained that fewer people are traveling to China from other countries, and fewer Chinese are traveling abroad. This might be because of stricter visa reviews or efforts to prevent capital from leaving the country. He also mentioned that the trade and tech wars between the US and Europe with China, along with China's national security law, have made countries more cautious about investing in China or have led to reduced investments. As a result, the demand for both business and leisure travel has declined. As foreign airlines withdraw from China, Chinese airlines are facing a tough situation. Recent data shows that China's four major state-owned airlines collectively lost more than 7 billion RMB in the first half of this year. The last time these companies reported a profitable year was before the COVID-19 pandemic in 2019. According to a report by China Business News, among China's four major airlines, China Eastern Airlines is expected to reduce its losses by 3.3 billion to 3.8 billion yuan in the first half of the year, making it the most severely affected. Next is Air China, which is expected to report a net loss of 2.3 billion to 3 billion yuan in the first half. China Southern Airlines and Hainan Airlines are expected to lose between 820 million and 1.58 billion yuan. Data shows that the number of flights between China and the United States is currently 1/5 of what it was in 2019. Industry analysts believe that while China's Golden Week holidays frequently set new records for tourist numbers, the downgrade in consumer spending power has severely impacted the aviation industry. Besides the trend of budget travel among Chinese citizens, the CCP's national security laws have scared away many foreigners, which is the biggest reason for the decline.